Let's do this. I've avoided it long enough with winks and nods. Let's finally talk about the only thing you've ever really wanted to know about me. Is Velma Dinkley?
Velma, you fed the cat Sophie's prenatal vitamin.
Oh, sorry.
Hello. In today's episode, we talk about racism, sexuality, and mental health. Are you ready to join Velma on this exciting adventure? Alright, we pick up immediately where we left off last time, with Velma and Daphne smooching it up. This occurrence has left Velma in a state of shock as she gives a narration. Let's take a listen.
I've avoided it long enough with winks and nods. Let's finally talk about the only thing you've ever really wanted to know about me. Is Velma Dinkley?
Velma, snap out of it!
Gay. She was talking about being gay. Okay. No, not only is that not the only thing people want to know about you, that is something we would rather never speak about, ever. Whew, off to a great start. This was meant to be a Monster of the Week mystery show, but unfortunately, it's been taken over by depraved perverts whose only concern is who is boinking who, and that will only become more apparent as the show goes on. Reminder that these are high school students around 15 years of age. The show's stars even proudly boast about how the show has a love quadrangle? What? Do you mean a square? Whatever. Point being, this super fun, super creative Scooby-Doo origin is all about how the gang slept around with each other in high school. Fun stuff, right? Also, why the underwear shot for Velma? Why do you feel the need to punish people for supporting your product?
She disappeared at Fred's house. Bye!
Oh boy. The title appears and we see Velma and Norville discuss the smooching that recently occurred. Norville is upset at the idea that Velma might have the gay, because that will leave him friend-zoned. He also reveals that he told his dad about what happened because he's the school's guidance counselor, and he hopes that he could help Velma pin down her sexuality. Are we having fun yet? At the end of the conversation, Velma coughs up a flower. By the way, during this scene, two guys frequently walk around in the background with their tongues in each other's mouths. I'm sure you just can't wait to watch this now, huh? We then transition to a mental health seminar that Norville's dad is hosting. Everyone hates him and haggles him, so Norville's mom, the principal, steps in to announce that all the girls in the school must take a self-defense class in order to try and prevent more murders. Velma protests because she thinks that the boys should take a Don't Murder Girls class instead.
Why don't the boys have to take a Don't Murder Girls class?
Because I only have $50 in the budget to combat centuries of toxic masculinity.
Fucking shut up!
Alright, so there's a lot of directions we could go when discussing this sort of topic, but I'll keep it brief because I assume most people will already have formed opinions on this. A self-defense class is good for anyone to learn, be you a woman, man, child, or adult. And all of these said groups, and others I may have missed, already get taught that killing is bad. It's like the main thing that everyone agrees is not cool. So here's how we could improve this scene. Hire better writers and think of better jokes. If you'd rather not do that, then don't be surprised when your show reaches record-breaking levels of failure. It's then revealed that the self-defense instructors are none other than Daphne's lesbian detective mothers. Man, they are really obsessed with this irrelevant, unfunny duo. They take up more screen time than pretty much everyone except Velma herself. After that scene, we see Fred in prison. In the post-credits of the last episode, we learn that Fred is now roommates with the mysterious Asian man who tried to shoot Norville, who definitely isn't related to anyone. Why would you ask such a thing? We don't spend much time with them though, as we cut to Norville and Velma. As they wait to visit with Fred, Velma talks about how she stuffed her bra because she still finds Fred attractive despite the moment she had with Daphne, and she is confused as to which of them she would rather be with. And there sure is a lot of tell-don't-show going on right now. Velma says that she likes Fred, but she has barely shown any interest in him thus far, and most of her scenes talking about him involve her insulting and demeaning him, often straight to his face. Why does she like him? Also, Fred is apparently dating Daphne, but those two have barely shared a minute of screen time together, and most of that time was spent staring at Velma. And why would any of these four find each other appealing at all? Because they have been nothing but hateful, devious, and mean to each other since the show started. Thinking about this topic triggers another hallucination within Velma, as an evil Fred and Daphne try to make out with her. This excites Norville because now he thinks he'll have a chance to kiss her, the same way Daphne did earlier. But again, his advances only make Velma laugh, and that saves her. And because of her erratic behavior, Velma gets kicked out of the prison before she can speak to Fred. It's then decided that Norville will handle talking to Fred, while Velma figures out her feelings. We then return to the girls' self-defense class, where none other than when Daphne and Velma are selected to demonstrate techniques on each other, but they both panic and meet in the bathroom first. Or at least Velma tries to, but she's so overwhelmingly out of shape that she struggles to get in and out of the cross-legged position. While in the bathroom, they discuss their feelings and something drama, something emotions. Now they don't like each other again, because neither are willing to be honest about how they feel. When they go back to the gym, Daphne kicks Velma. Then the class learns that they will all compete with each other in a tournament to see who is the least vulnerable amongst them. This is a good time to point out that this episode is called Velma Kai, and that has to be the most offensive joke this show has made so far. Cobra Kai may not be the greatest thing ever, but that show is far superior to this pathetic waste of time and money, and any attempt to compare the two is simply insulting. If you want a modern high school drama that's actually interesting and not migraine-inducing, then watch Cobra Kai. But if good storytelling is not your thing, then just stick with Velma. We return to Fred in prison, as he gets visited by Norville, who insists on giving him therapy, but is secretly trying to figure out what connections he has to Velma's mother. However, their talk gets interrupted by the mystery Asian man, who intervenes in Fred's defense. As the two have apparently bonded, Norville tells the man that he's only doing this to try and win Velma's affection. But the man tells him that he's wasting his time because those kinds of relationships rarely work out. This provokes Norville to lash out and push the man, and it seems a fight is about to begin. Speaking of, the girls' self-defense tournament is about to start. Velma is in the first round, and she wins by throwing her opponent on her butt, causing her to puke up what appears to be silicone. If you were hoping the show was done being gross, well, you still have a lot of waiting to do. We then see a montage of Velma and Daphne beating all the other girls in gross and unsightly ways until they become the final two, all within the span of about 1 minute. So why did the writers feel the need to make a whole tournament just for Daphne and Velma to fight in a similar way that they were instructed to earlier in the episode? Well, because as long as something is happening, that counts as content, even if it's a completely irrelevant waste of time. Although calling something a waste of time in this show is a bit redundant, because that phrase could describe this entire affair. Really quick, I'd also like to highlight this one fight in particular from the montage, just so you can see what we're dealing with. Why are you turning around? What are you looking for? It's an open gym with nowhere to hide. She just laid on the floor. This girl is smart enough to write for this show. And obviously, like, what is this? Just why? We then jump back to Norville after getting beaten up in prison, as he tells his dad what happened. They make some rapid-fire jokes about how useless therapists are.
No one will ever take you seriously as a therapist without this one little thing.
PhD in psychology?
Please, I never finished mine and literally no one's checked, no.
So, do with that what you will. Then his dad tells Norville that the secret to being a good therapist is a cardigan, as he lets Norville try his on. Upon wearing it, Norville begins to shine with the therapy power, and this is supposed to be a stand-in for Shaggy, right? We seem to be falling more and more off the beaten path as time goes on. If I had to guess, it seems like Mindy had a bad run-in with a therapist in her past and wanted to use Norville as a way to vent those frustrations. Daphne and Velma meet in the bathroom, again, to discuss their feelings, again, and something drama, something, they still don't like each other, yada yada. Norville visits Fred, again, to talk about therapy, again, but now he has his special cardigan. Unfortunately, he still doesn't learn anything, because even though Velma's mom visited Fred's house, he claims he doesn't pay attention to women over 35, so he doesn't know what she did while she was there. Norville gives up, but then all the other prisoners line up to receive therapy from him, and now it's time for Daphne and Velma to fight. But instead of doing so, Velma reveals that she stole Daphne's journal and proceeds to read from it in front of the whole school. Daphne stands there and does nothing as this goes on, and the big secret that Velma reveals is that Daphne has daily visits with the guidance counselor. And nothing else. Seriously, that's it. She didn't even say what the meetings were about, aside from some vague issues. Regardless, Daphne is hurt by this, and everyone boos Velma for going too far. And alright, we need to unpack this, because this bullshit show is driving me insane. Fred cuts a kid's leg off, and no one cares. Velma insults Daphne's murdered friends to her face, and she doesn't care. Daphne and Velma deal drugs, and they see no issue with that. Earlier in the tournament, Daphne relentlessly stabs a girl with a pen, spilling blood everywhere, and no one cares. But Velma spills the fact that Daphne talks to a guidance counselor, and suddenly everyone's like, whoa, take it easy. Why?
Who gives a dusty fuck?
You may be a bit out of touch. It's 2023. Kids today go to therapy just for the fun of it and brag to their friends afterwards. But more to the point, how are we as an audience meant to care when bad things happen if worse things are occurring all the time, but no one bats an eye because it's presented as a lol so random joke? The beyond garbage sense of humor that this show uses has completely annihilated any level of stakes or investment. They want us to care and empathize with these characters to some level, but have completely failed at every opportunity to tell us why we should. good. Why should I care about Daphne being sad when she deals drugs to solve her first world problems and stabs her peers during an athletic competition? And for as foul as this show usually is, this journal reading was one of the tamest things it has ever done, yet it's treated like a mortal sin. Members of the crowd haze Velma for making light of mental health, which is all everyone has been doing this entire episode, including this same girl who makes the comments.
You can't spell mental health without me!
You can't spell kill me without me either. Mental health is no joke.
The crowd then rallies behind Daphne as she hits Velma so hard that she leaves a crater in the brick wall that she collides with. See, this is what I'm talking about. That attack is way more extreme than Velma reading from a journal. Velma should be dead after that hit, yet everyone loves Daphne and hates Velma?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
As the episode trails on, we get some nefarious looks from Norville's mom. So that's the thing, I guess. Who cares? Velma is now apparently being made to talk to Norville's dad, the guidance counselor, as he gives Velma the option to apologize to Daphne or get suspended. Velma states that Daphne hit her so hard that her tubes are now tied. So, yeah, anyway, Mr. Rogers makes a joke that hurting Daphne's feelings is a much worse offense than that. So at least the writers are somewhat self-aware. It's then established that Velma became closed off after her mother left her, and now she needs to learn how to open up. It would be nice if the show displayed such behavior leading up to this, but she's been everything but closed off so far.
She kicked me so hard my tubes are now tied.
Velma then gets told that she only has to apologize to Daphne if she wants to. Velma and Norville meet up again, and Norville concludes that Fred probably isn't the murderer since he didn't know what Velma's mom did at his house, leading Velma to believe that Fred is innocent yet again. Thanks for finally catching up with what the audience is already painfully aware of. Can we please move on from Fred now?
Yeah, but isn't it a little comforting to see a rich white guy get wrongly convicted for once?
I'm too distracted to enjoy it.
Alright, that's gonna get addressed, but we'll save it for the end. After dropping Velma off, Norville then realizes he forgot to give therapy to Fred and all the other prisoners. This triggers abandonment issues within Fred, and he incites a riot that leads to the prisoners busting through a wall and escaping. Velma then meets with Daphne to talk about their feelings for a third time. Velma apologizes, then Daphne opens up to her about her abandonment issues. Noticing a theme here. Velma then tries to make it about herself, and brings up what else except her own abandonment issues. Then the two argue about who abandoned who first, but eventually they work it out and decide to just be friends. Super interesting. Anyway, Norville's dad relinquishes the cardigan from Norville as they look upon the burning prison. However, a clue falls from the cardigan's pocket, and its importance will be revealed at a later time. We close out with Velma, in bed, looking at pictures of Daphne as she prepares to do questionable things with her hand.
Stop it. Get some help.
Whew. Then we get a mid-credit scene. We follow up on the prison escape, as the mystery Asian man gets away, while Fred gets recaptured by Velma's lesbian detective mothers, who are now using cardigan therapy powers.
But why won't we take you alive, Fred?
Because I want to look tough to impress my father.
Aww.
And that is what we call milking a joke to the extreme. It was not that funny to begin with, and it's even less funny now. So please, just stop, and spare yourselves from even more disgrace. Okay, but now that it's over, let's go back to those earlier comments.
Yeah, but isn't it a little comforting to see a rich white guy get wrongly convicted for once?
I'm too distracted to enjoy it.
This show is just straight up racist. That clip leaves no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You could read it as a joke if you want, but it's not funny, and they say stuff like that a lot. It reads more like the writers are just stating their views on life. Unless you think I'm just a prude who can't take a joke, let's compare this bad example of humor to something that's actually funny. And where else would you go for that except Chappelle's Show?
Let's start the show.
I'm turning no heads by telling you that Dave Chappelle is one of the funniest comedians out there, and a lot of his material centers around making jokes about race. But he has one skit in particular that I'd like to cover for the sake of comparison, that being the racial draft, a segment in which various races come together to decide which public figures who break cultural barriers will get claimed by one definitive race. Now before I spoil and explain all the best punchlines in this bit, the whole thing is on YouTube already, so I recommend you check it out for yourself. You could say that the nature of this bit is racist in and of itself, but what separates it from shows like Velma and makes it entertaining is that the racial draft is generally on point and in touch with public perception. For example, Tiger Woods gets claimed by the black community since he's more so seen as a black icon, and because most people probably don't even know that he's mixed race anyway.
So long, fried rice. Hello, fried chicken. I love you, Dad!
Dave Chappelle himself plays the white representative, doing so in whiteface, but you can't help but laugh at him because his white person impression is so bad, yet somehow so accurate at the same time.
Pardon me. Hey, will you cut the malarkey? Okay, I'm talking. There's a white man talking up here. Silencio!
When the whites make their pick, it's for a man who simply looks white despite not being so, and that causes a disruption in the event.
He's not even an eighth white. He's 100% black.
Last I heard.
Wow, I gotta wonder how the blacks are gonna be taking this one.
It's not saying anything positive or negative about whites, it's just using race to be funny. But later on, he has a hilarious exchange with the black representative over who gets to claim Eminem, because Eminem is seen as a high value pick for both sides.
Black delegation request Eminem. Wait a goddamn minute, Ronville. That's not part of the party.
This bit was also never intended to be malicious or mean-spirited. It simply serves as an observation of different races and pokes fun at the different things they do, regardless if said things are positive or negative. It's not necessarily that it's good because everyone gets made fun of equally, but it's more so good because the jabs that it takes are generally fair, and the various punchlines come as fun surprises, based on who gets picked and why. But now when we take that and compare it to Velma, and its racial humor, well, for starters, every racial joke in Velma is targeted at white people, and none of them come with an upside. They aren't clever or surprising either, it's just the same repetition of white privilege this, white privilege that. And it's not all that fair or accurate because, and this might shock you now, so get ready, but white people can be poor and have struggles too. It feels like the only interactions the writers had with white people comes from news and TV. If we did the inverse, and made Fred the only minority in the group, with them constantly making jokes about how poor and unfortunate he is because of his color, do you think that would go over well? And the most irritating thing about this whole conversation is that we have to have it in the first place. This is just a dumb Scooby-Doo show. Why does it hinge so hard on topics and themes that have no business being in a dumb Scooby-Doo show? Anyway, that's it. Goodbye.